Today on Face the Nation, the Starr report goes to Congress and the public. How is the nation reacting? In an extraordinary event, independent counsel Ken Starr submitted his report to the Congress. It is full of tawdry detail and grounds, he says, for impeachment. The White House has already begun to fight the report. What does Congress think of it? Should there be impeachment hearings? We'll ask two of the most influential members of the Senate, Judiciary Committee Chairman Republican Orrin Hatch of Utah and Democrat Bob Kerrey of Nebraska. What will the White House do now? We'll ask a member of the president's legal team, Lanny Breuer. The Starr Report on Face the Nation.
Face the Nation with Chief Washington Correspondent Bob Schieffer. And now from CBS News in Washington, Bob Schieffer.
Good morning again on what is turning out to be yet another dramatic morning. The first reactions from the public are coming in now to the Starr Report. The gist of a CBS News poll conducted this weekend is this. There is increasing sentiment that the president ought to be punished in some way, but most Americans do not want him to resign or be impeached. Some specifics now. For the first time, a majority supports some kind of censure, and that number has increased substantially since last week. But most people, more than 60%, believe impeachment hearings are unnecessary, and an even larger group is opposed to the president's resignation. Significantly, Ken Starr's report is not getting very good reviews. 64% of the people we polled said they believe that all the sex details were inappropriate, and 60% believe they were put there to embarrass the president. With us now, Republican Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah, Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Bob Kerrey, Democrat of Nebraska, is in Denver this morning. Gloria Borger is here with us to join in the questioning. We begin with Senator Hatch. Well, Senator Hatch, we had a rather dramatic episode here at CBS News this morning. The telephone rang on the news desk and they said the president is trying to get in touch with Senator Hatch. Did you get in touch with him, and did he get in touch with you?
I did call him in my car, and we had a very interesting conversation. His apology last Friday and his request for forgiveness was, I thought, if that had been done early in the year in January or even on the 17th of August, it would have gone a long way towards diffusing this. But I thought it was good anyway. I think it was contrite. It remains to be seen just what's going to happen here.
Did he apologize again to you this morning personally?
Well, I'd rather keep that conversation just between the two of us. We've had a number of conversations over his presidency, and I've always honored the confidentiality of that. But basically, it was a very hard-hitting, very good exchange of what I feel and what he feels, and I was, it was an interesting conversation.
Senator, did the president tell you that he might accept censure, that he might admit to perjury and accept censure?
No, he did not. He basically thanked me for approaching this in the way that I'm approaching it, and I appreciate that. I've been trying to do this in a way that is in the best interest of our country. Who am I? I'm just one member of Congress. I don't ask for these interviews, but I feel like it's an obligation to be here and to answer the questions that come. But I have to say that I'm very concerned about the state of politics, the state of things that are happening in America. And frankly, I read the complete Starr report word for word. I've read the rebuttals. And I have to say it's dramatic.
Well, what does that mean, it's dramatic? Does it mean that you now believe the president is no longer fit for office?
The report's not good. I mean, the evidence in the report doesn't help the president at all. Some people are criticizing it because Judge Starr had to lay out all of the lurid details, but frankly, the reason he had to do that is because the president's attorneys and the president himself keep staying behind this business that they were, quote, legally correct. Nobody believes that. Frankly, nobody believes that. Look, it's time for the president, just level with the American people. Just tell them, look, he made a series of mistakes here. He feels terrible about it. He tried to rectify them even before it was found out. Now he's trying to rectify it and doing the best he can. And it'll go a lot farther than all of the linguistic parsing, to use Judge Starr's words, or to use the words of Kendall, admitting that he deceived, that he split hairs, that he was using legalisms to try and get around what the law is.
Do you believe the president perjured himself?
I believe that there is credible evidence that the president lied during the Paula Jones proceeding. I think he could have gotten around that by saying that he did so to protect his wife and daughter, and he thought he was legally correct at the time, but he isn't today. Where he really is in trouble is going and using that, quote, legally correct, unquote, definition that he didn't have sexual relations before the grand jury, and that was ridiculous. Nobody believes that. He ought to admit that and just say, look, I'm changing my life. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to be the best president I can possibly be the last 2 years. If you'll give me the chance to serve, please forgive me. He's done that now as of Friday. It would have been better a month ago. It would have been better 7 months ago. But the fact is he's done it. I accept it. I hope we can resolve these problems. But look, these are serious problems.
But you're saying he still has to come out and say, look, this business, all these legalistic terms.
He ought to quit splitting legal hairs.
He needs to come back and tell
he is
people
being
that.
very badly served with this legal hair splitting. Nobody believes that. Nobody wants to hear that. What they want to hear is the president who is truly contrite. I think he went a long way last Friday towards that. He ought to continue that. He ought to get rid of this legalism stuff. The American people are a lot smarter than these $400 an hour lawyers think they are, and I think they ought to get the heck out. Nobody's going to indict this president during his office, which there's an argument for, and there's nobody going to indict him after he leaves office. So they shouldn't be worried about that. What they ought to worry about is if he can survive this crisis and continue his presidency.
Well, let's talk a little bit.
And frankly, I'm really shocked that they keep blasting Starr. Look, Judge Starr did what he had to do, and he had to put all those details in because of their dissembling on the law.
Senator, a Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, Zoe Lofgren, told CBS News Friday night that presidents should be impeached for threatening the Constitution. She says you can't impeach a president because he's a bum, or you ought not to. Hasn't this come down to just about that? I mean, once you get through this Starr report, and I, like you, sat down yesterday and read it from start to finish, all 400-plus pages, once you get past all the sex and the nasty business, there's not much there besides a president who's trying to, and he did lie, to get around marital infidelity.
Well, remember, this started because of Janet Reno finding that there was credible evidence of criminal wrongdoing. There is credible evidence that there was perjury, subornation of perjury, tampering with witnesses, and obstruction of justice. Some of that can be explained away because of the desire to protect his wife and daughter from the pain that would come from this. But it can't all be explained away. And to attack Judge Starr at this time, I think, begs the question. I think, frankly, his attorneys are having a rough time reconciling the facts with what their interpretation of the law is. And they're splitting legal hairs again, for which the president has been condemned from the beginning.
Let's talk a little bit about what Congress is likely to do. Are there any grounds under which you would accept censure?
Let me not talk in terms of what the remedy may be here, because I think that's up to the House of Representatives. I'm just one senator, one member of 535 members of the Congress. But let me just say this. You don't have to have committed a crime to be impeached if you look at the history of this. It's a matter of just how bad these things are and how much condemnation it's brought to the presidency. On the other hand, nobody should be impeached who's been elected by the American people twice unless you have absolutely strong reasons for doing so. Now, if you take any one of these accusations against the president, standing alone they may not be enough. If you accumulate them and put them all together, there could be room enough to do this in the House of Representatives. My own personal view is that we ought to follow it through. I have total confidence in Henry Hyde, who's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. I know him really well. He's a great man. He's an honest man, and he'll do what's right here. And he'll try and keep this so that it's done on a high plane and a high level. And if he does, I think the president has a chance of getting through if he'll quit splitting legal hairs, if he'll quit playing this legal game and start being what he is, a basically warm, winning person who the American people have liked from the beginning. If he'll do that and just acknowledge, yeah, I've done some really bad things, I really screwed up here, my gosh, I think the president could get through this. But and I've said this from the beginning, but he's starting to lose, I've got to tell you.
Just for the record, you do not think the president at this point should resign his way out of this?
Well, let me put it this way. I don't think he should until he sees what the House of Representatives is looking at and what they decide to do. And I don't think any president should resign voluntarily as long as they've got a chance of maybe getting through this. And this particular president, look, there are many good things about this president. We ought to look to the good. But we can't ignore the bad. And there are a lot of bad things here.
Let's leave
That's
it
why I
there.
say about the report, it's bad in many ways, and I sure as heck wouldn't be blaming Judge Starr for it. He didn't cause these things. He had the obligation to follow through. He's done a very good job, and he had to put this stuff in because of legal dissembling and legal splitting of hairs on the part of the president and his attorneys.
All right, let's leave it at there for a moment, and let's now go out to Denver, where Senator Kerry, Democrat of Nebraska, is standing by. Senator Kerry, when Senator Lieberman made that extraordinary speech on the Senate floor, you were one of the Democrats that endorsed what Senator Lieberman had to say. You've now read this report. You have seen the polls that have come out this morning. What do you think is going to happen next, and what ought to happen?
Well, first of all, I think we need to offer our prayers to the president and his wife and his daughter, and the whole family is suffering a great deal right now. And he's, to what the facts that he stipulated to, it's disgraceful, it's shameful. It's brought shame on the office. He's let his friends down, he's let his nation down, as he said in his own words. And, you know, we have to be held to a higher standard. He knows that, I know that, Senator Hatch knows that, we understand that. This is not 1960, it's 1998. And we have to bring I think reasoned judgment after the House does its work, and I hope it does it quickly. But I think one of the things that needs to be understood here as well is this is the prosecutor's case, and every prosecutor that makes a case is going to make a very strong and persuasive case. We've not heard the defense. That's one of the reasons I think the Judiciary Committee, I hope, can get to this thing in an expeditious fashion so the American people and the Congress, who's going to have to make a judgment about what needs to be done, what sort of further punishment, if anything, needs to be imposed upon this president for the actions that we ultimately decide that he's committed.
Knowing what you know, and if we should accept, just in theory, that everything that's in this report is true at this point, would you think it reaches the level of impeachment, Senator Kerry?
Well, I think it's highly inappropriate for me or anybody who's making a judgment about what needs to be done to even enter that discussion, Bob, because, again, this is the prosecutor's case. Can you imagine a jury that's sitting there trying to make a determination about somebody's guilt says, gee, I've now heard the prosecutor's case, but I don't have enough time to hear the defense. Okay. I've got to get up and go now. It's un-American to do that. I mean, our system allows for people to be defended. And I think we, as members of Congress especially, have to wait for that defense to be made, and I hope it's made quickly.
Senator Kerry, let's talk about what Senator Hatch was saying, which is, on the one hand, you've got the president out there apologizing for lying. You've got his lawyers saying, no, he didn't lie, he was legally accurate. How do you square those two?
You don't, and I agree with Senator Hatch. The president's going to lose if they continue to do that.
So do you believe he should admit to perjury?
I don't know if it's, I mean, I don't know that he needs to admit to perjury. I don't know if he's perjured himself. I mean, that I don't know. But if you come and say that to the American people that I'm legally correct, I didn't have sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky, you're going to lose. And you're going to lose. And I hope that the president, I think the president understands that. I mean, Lord knows the last 96 hours or so, he's been very direct and very apologetic and very contrite and I think very moving as a consequence. And I think he has to continue that. And I agree with Senator Hatch. If you come in and then try to make a legal argument about what he said on January 17th, I think you're going to lose.
You know, back in the campaign of '92, when you were running in the primaries against then Governor Clinton, I think at one point you said he is an unusually good liar, and people criticized you for that at the time. Do you feel somewhat vindicated in that assessment, and how do you feel about that now that he is the president?
No, I don't feel vindicated. I made that comment in 1995 after he went to Texas and spoke to a bunch of fundraisers down there and said that he didn't want to raise their taxes. Congress made him do it. And a lot of us who voted for it didn't feel that that was an accurate statement. And I was, to put it mildly, a bit rash and harsh in my judgment at the time. No, I don't feel vindicated. My prayers to go to the president. He's suffering a great deal, both he and his wife, as well as his daughter. I know that he's sincere on Friday when he says that he's sinned, and there's no other way to put it, and that his spirit is on the mend. I mean, I think we need to simultaneously bring our compassion and our prayers to the president and our judgment. And I said this yesterday. Bringing harsh judgment simultaneously with compassion to individuals who I believe have violated the law. And that's what we have to do, understanding that we are held to a higher standard than the rest of the American people. We have to accept that responsibility that comes with leadership.
Senator Kerry, let's talk a little bit about what might happen. There is some talk that Democrats are saying the president should just admit to perjury, get that out of the way, as you were talking about before, and accept some form of censure in the Congress. Would that be a good strategy? Should he do that?
I can't comment on that. I don't know if it's a good strategy. I think it's very important for the president and to try to get with Congressman Hyde, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and Congressman Conyers, the ranking Democrat, and try to see if we can expedite the hearings that are going to try to sort this all out.
How would you expedite it aside?
Well, I just don't think the facts are that difficult to get to. This is not a complicated set of facts. In many ways, the report's not as shocking as a lot of us expected based upon the rumors that were circulated in that black hole there in Washington, D.C., where rumors feed on themselves constantly. I think you can sort these facts out in a hurry, and I hope that is done so that not only the people get a chance to make a judgment, the Congress can make a judgment as to whether or not additional punishment is both warranted and necessary.
Senator Kerry, thank you very much. If I get the message from both you and Senator Hatch, who's here in the studio this morning, it seems to be the president ought to fire the lawyers. Senator Hatch, do you think that there is a way for impeachment hearings to be avoided?
Well, I don't know about that, but I can say that I believe if the president would get rid of the legal hair splitting and playing word games with the law, he'd be a lot better off, and I frankly think the American people would come behind him much more, and that alone would help the members of Congress to perhaps, there's going to be some sort of a sanction here. The question is what? From impeachment to censure to rebuke to condemnation, or what? But the fact of the matter is that, and there should be. I mean, this has been an abuse of office in many ways. I can't justify anything he said or that he's done. But the fact of the matter is that I have a lot of compassion for his wife, his family, for him, and for the country most of all. And what is in the best interest, what is in the best interest of the country has to be the paramount interest of us today.
All right, Senator Hatch, that sets the stage for our next guest, one of the president's lawyers, when we come back.
This portion of Face the Nation is brought to you by IBM, Solutions for a Small Planet, and by Prudential, bringing strength and stability to America's families through insurance, health care, real estate, and financial services.
Where in the world should you be investing now? There's opportunity all around the globe. Overseas markets can be rewarding, but there are always risks. You need a guide who knows the way.
If you want to invest in foreign markets, you have to be in those markets, and Prudential's there.
We think our global research capability gives our investors a real advantage.
Find Prudential's investment know-how all around the world and right around the corner.
Woo! I actually got in.
You broke into personnel.
Yeah, these are salaries of every person in the company.
Look, this senior VP makes about half as much as this senior VP. I bet he doesn't know that.
Sure he does. I just emailed everybody in the company.
Rocks. Some people skip them, stack them, or just plain ignore them. But then there's these Texaco people. They love the darn things. Yes. Obsess over them. Go to the ends of the earth to find them. They study them. They scan them. Even taste them. Why? You find the right rocks. You find the energy the world needs to keep on running. Texaco, a world of energy.
And we're now back with the White House Special Counsel Lanny Breuer, who's been involved in this and the president's defense from the very beginning. You must know what the man meant when Shakespeare's character said, "First kill all the lawyers," after hearing what Senator Hatch and Senator Kerry said this morning. They're saying, stop all this legal hair splitting, but let the president come forward to people and say, look, I did wrong, and go on from there. Why do you continue this?
I think what Senator Hatch said this morning is right. The President of the United States has said to the American people from his heart that he had an improper sexual relationship with Miss Lewinsky, and that relationship was wrong. And for that, he has asked the American people for their forgiveness. And anyone who's seen the President over the last days and weeks can see the sincerity in his heart, and that he's going to do everything that he can do to win the personal trust back of the American people.
Mr. Brewer, most people who stand up and say, I have sinned, don't couple that with the second paragraph that says, but I'm going to have my lawyers put up a vigorous defense.
But remember...
That's what they're talking about.
Well, Bob, but
what's the purpose?
But remember what the President said on Friday. The President said that I won't permit my lawyers to stand in the way of the message I have to the American people. And that message is to the American people that I had an improper sexual relationship. For that, I'm sorry, and for that, I will do everything I can to win back your personal trust. And that really, Bob, is in fact what this is about, and nothing in the report, in Ken Starr's report, comes anywhere clear or close to the remarkable gravity and the solemn nature of impeachment as our founders envisioned
Mr. Brewer,
it.
let's talk a little bit about the President's legal defense. Do you believe that the person receiving oral sex is not engaged in sexual relations?
Gloria, I'm going to take Senator Hatch at his word. I'm not going to today use legal niceties. What I'm going to tell you...
This is your legal case, though.
But our legal...
Defend your legal case.
The President of the United States, in front of the grand jury, when he spoke, admitted to having an improper sexual relationship. He could not have been more clear in stating that, and he couldn't be more clear in the last days as he's spoken to the American people about that relationship.
But he has said he did not lie in the Paula Jones deposition because of this definition of sexual relations. So what I am asking you, is that a definition that you accept?
Gloria, I don't want to have a legal debate here, but I was a prosecutor for a number of years. Under no circumstances is the convoluted deposition in that Paula Jones case with ambiguous questions, vague answers, strained definitions, come close to what constitutes perjury. There isn't a prosecutor in this country who would bring a perjury case under these facts and these circumstances. And to think that based on that we should have an impeachment inquiry, I think is remarkably strained and completely unfounded.
But this is what the senators are saying. Wasn't the President just trying to be a little too clever here?
The President of the United States in the Paula Jones deposition answered questions in a manner based on the ambiguous questions he was asked and gave answers that clearly were not suggestive to provide all information that wasn't asked for, but to answer the questions as they were posed. But that's not the point.
And he told the truth.
And we're moving away from that. In the grand jury, he stated, I have an improper sexual relationship.
Did he tell the truth?
He told the truth in the grand jury. He has told the truth to the American people, and there's nothing in this report other than a litany of salacious sexual episodes so that we today will have this very kind of conversation. We need to move beyond that, Gloria. The President has acknowledged he made a mistake. The President wants to win back the public trust of the American people, and that's what he's set on doing, and he won't permit me or any of his lawyers to stand in the way of him doing that.
Mr. Brewer, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks.
We'll be back with a final word in just a minute.
Once upon a time, there was a printer that thought it was a copier. It was fast, 32 pages a minute. This printer collated, sorted, and stapled like a copier. Even had a name worthy of a copier. And starting at just $2,900, it made all the other printers very, very sad. That's the story of the Xerox DocuPrint N32, the printer that thinks it's a copier. For your local reseller, call 1-800-34-XEROX.
In his college days, cardiologist George Lustig loved to compete. But for many years, high blood pressure held him back. Now, thanks to healthy living and medicine developed by Pfizer Research, he's back in the race. And the 2 gold medals he won in the U.S. Masters Nationals prove hypertension isn't all he's beating. Pfizer, we're part of the cure.
Peter Lynch. I'm Susie, your stress technician, trainee. Not to worry. Here we go. Wow. Under control.
This reminds me of the stock market.
You can't just shoot up without warning.
Sure can.
And then drop.
25% or more, 4 times since 1970.
So stressful.
You know, Fidelity can help you better prepare for the market's ups and downs.
For the free guide, Investing in Volatile Markets, call 1-800-FIDELITY or visit fidelity.com.
Wow, you're stress-free.
A place of visionaries. A place of dynamos. A place where if you want, you really can change the world. A place of doers and darers and shapers. Who's next? The New York Stock Exchange. The world puts its stock in us.
The White House under fire. Now that the Starr Report has been made public, how's it playing across America? We'll have a special series of reports Monday on the CBS Evening News.
Finally today, President Clinton has always styled himself a champion of women's rights, and to me that is the sad irony of what we are seeing play out with the release of the Starr Report. Tawdry as it is, my guess is it's going to take more than Starr has come up with so far to convince Congress to impeach the president, but we'll see. In the meantime, what Starr has done is paint a devastating portrait of a president who has selfishly used others, especially women, to satisfy his needs of the moment, and not just Monica Lewinsky, who was led on, used, and discarded. He took advantage of his own cabinet officers, Donna Shalala and Madeleine Albright, by asking them to defend him, knowing he was sending them out to lie. Still, as I read the report, it struck me he took advantage of no one in a more cavalier fashion than his secretary, Betty Curry, who found it part of her job to schedule Ms. Lewinsky's visits and escort her into the White House. She told prosecutors she would sometimes drive in from her Maryland home on weekends for the sole purpose of shepherding Ms. Lewinsky into and out of the president's office. We can only wonder what she must have been thinking as she sat there on her day off, waiting for them to conclude their trysts. According to Ms. Lewinsky, even on the weekend after Mrs. Curry's brother died, the president was prepared to summon her to the White House so she could let Ms. Lewinsky in. On that weekend, Ms. Lewinsky had the grace to say, "Let's not." Forget impeachment, high crimes, and misdemeanors for a moment. What's the penalty for low-down, totally thoughtless insensitivity? That's our broadcast for today. We'll see you next week on Face the Nation.